Hey guys, this is Keir from rugbystrengthcoach.com. In today's video, I'm probably going to shock you because I'm going to talk about CrossFit and things that they do well, specifically one aspect. And I think if you can steal this particular aspect of CrossFit and apply it in your own training, you're going to improve your explosiveness on the field and improve your conditioning so that you're able to repeat explosive efforts like sprinting, tackling, rucking, mauling, and so on more frequently before you fatigue on the field of play. And to kind of introduce this topic, I want to reference a conversation that I had with Darcy Norman, who's the head of sports science for Germany soccer and was part of the team that won the World Cup last year. I was lucky enough to spend a day with him when I was at Exos in California in December. And one of the conversations we had was about energy system or conditioning development for field-based sports. And Darcy argued that the goal of energy system development is to perform explosive efforts, like I mentioned, for rugby, we're talking about sprinting, rucking, mauling, and so on, to perform those efforts as frequently as possible whilst maintaining the power output that we need to perform those efforts. Essentially, what we're talking about is density, cramming more explosive efforts into the same amount of time. And this is an opinion which I agree with, and it's also an opinion which has been echoed by another coach which I respect, and that is James Smith from Power Development Inc. James argues that the emphasis within an athlete's preparation needs to be a lot more on explosiveness of efforts rather than the sustainability of efforts. And this is because if we improve explosiveness, we not only get the benefit of explosiveness for its own sake, we also indirectly improve work capacity and reduce fatigue, because we know that the demands of the game are relatively fixed, and we know that if we increase our maximal outputs relative to those demands of the game, when we play the game, we operate at a lower percentage of our maximum. This means that not only is it easier, it's also more sustainable and less fatiguing. And it's for this reason that I'm not actually a big fan of things like maximal aerobic speed or just the traditional rugby approach of run until you feel sick. And that is because these approaches aren't necessarily concerned with the explosiveness of an effort, rather they're concerned with the sustainability of a sub-maximal effort. And to paraphrase Charlie Francis, if you're shit to begin with and you increase your sustainability, congratulations, you're just shitter for longer. So what does CrossFit do well? Well, I'm talking specifically about the performance of explosive lifts for as many reps or sets as possible within a fixed time limit. Obviously, if we can increase the amount of sets or reps that get performed within that set time period, we're going to increase density and we've increased the repeatability of explosive efforts, which should hopefully transfer to our ability to perform explosive efforts again and again on the field of play. Now, to do this, you need to use exercises which are explosive in nature and have a built-in constraint into the exercise whereby you can't cheat and perform a rep with progressively lower power outputs. And by that, I'm talking about exercises like jumps, medicine ball throws for a fixed height or target, and the Olympic lifts or other dynamic effort lifts. Now, with jumps and medicine ball throws, it's pretty much cut and dry. You either get the lift or you don't. You're either explosive enough or you're not. With the Olympic lifts, there are of course ways that you can cheat certain reps and complete a rep even though your power output is less. However, it's still a much better candidate as an exercise than things like squats or deadlifts, where you can grind out reps and have a much lower power output and be much less explosive and still complete the reps. And if you have access to this kind of technology via Tendo Unit, GymAware or Bar Sensei, you can safeguard against this by measuring your bar speed and power output if you choose to perform barbell exercises as your explosive effort in your conditioning. Another feature of this kind of training which I like is that the emphasis is on producing power first and then developing capacity. By performing a lower amount of sets and reps within a given time period first, and then increasing the amount that gets performed over time, we're ensuring that we're concentrating on the production of explosive efforts first and then being able to repeat them as often as possible. And to me, this is a much more logical approach to conditioning than just sustaining sub-maximal efforts for as long as possible. Now, it goes without saying that within your program of energy system development for rugby, you are going to need to perform quite a lot of low intensity work to provide a base of preparation upon which to build high intensity training. However, when the time comes to use high intensity conditioning in your training, I would recommend taking a density-based approach in your work. It's a good idea to use exercises in which there's an inherent constraint whereby you cannot perform a rep if you're not explosive enough. And I mentioned some examples earlier: jumps, medicine ball throws, maybe even sprints within a given time limit. and you should make it your goal to increase the amount of explosive efforts that you can perform in this exercise as the mesocycle progresses, increasing your density of work. If you're in the earlier stages of your preseason or your career, you can get away with performing more general exercises, but if you are close to the season and you've accumulated quite a few years of training under your belt, I think it's a good idea to try and be as specific as possible in the type of work capacity that you're trying to generate for rugby. And by that, I mean performing the type of efforts that you're going to see on the field. For example, things like sprinting, sled drags, sled pushes, maybe even bouts of wrestling, performed with the greatest density possible. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe, and if you want more information, go to rugbystrengthcoach.com/blog. PS, CrossFit's still shit.